swim, bike and run in a Kona sun. We're gonna swim, bike and run in a Kona sun. It's Breakfast with Bob.
And Poncho Man, everybody. Again, welcome. Breakfast with Bob, our Kona World Championship edition from beautiful Huggo's on the Rocks. My name is Bob Babbitt. Brought to you by HOKA Fly Human Fly Master Spas, Precision Fuel and Hydration, Crush Your Race Nutrition, Deboer, Outrigger Kona Resort and Spa, Stay Longer, Save More, and of course our Challenged Athletes Foundation. And when I mention Challenged Athletes Foundation, one of our favorite people on the planet, longtime supporter of the foundation, Mr. Eric Gilsenan, joins us. 32 times Escape from Alcatraz finisher, 18-time Boston Marathon finisher. And how many Ironmans?
5.
How many here?
Just one.
One is plenty.
2002. One and done here.
Now, you remember coming over here for the first time?
Oh, yeah. 1992, working for Power Bar. And that was the year that you said to me on Friday afternoon, hey, I got this guy named Jim McLaren. He used to play football for Yale, went to acting school, got hit by a boss, lost his leg. He's doing the race tomorrow in a plastic and wood prosthetic. You got any of those Power Bars? I said, yeah. So I gave you a dozen malt nut, our finest, freshest malt nut, chocolate and wild berry, because that's all we had.
I know,
3 flavors, one product.
Well, and I kept them all and never gave Jim any of them. Screw them. You know, that's what I said. So,
no way.
Jimmy
got him.
Yeah. So you were. What's cool is you were there really at the beginning of Power Bar.
Yep.
You were there beginning of Saito.
Yep.
You were there sort of beginning, a big Goo, HOKA. You've been one of those guys who sort of can see a trend and can see something, and maybe it's just, hey, I'm an athlete, this Power Bar thing's pretty good, but you seem to be able to identify what's next and jump on board because a lot of those companies didn't really have a lot of wherewithal at the beginning. They eventually had it, but at the beginning they didn't. But you saw some. What did you see in those companies?
I think it was the upbringing that I had from my dad, who was a stockbroker, where every night it was a business conversation. Who won, Dad, the bull or the bear? And he'd tell me.
Oh, yeah?
He told me about in 1984 when an IPO came out, Nike and Apple. They came out on the same day in 1984.
Did they really?
Yep. And we would always talk business, and with that, we talked about who was spending to gain customers. There's a lot of different brands in triathlon, and some that have been around longer than the current sponsors, but they just don't see the opportunity that is here.
Right.
Why? There's so many stories out here. And for a new brand like Power Bar, there was no real other energy bar in the beginning.
There was no category.
So they were it. Goo was it. And there were a few others around, and they did their thing. But attaching your wagon as a new company or an existing brand that's already invested in sport, but they want to get into triathlon. And triathletes are real loyal. If you spend little money in, they'll
support you. Yeah.
And so I knew that with seeing what I saw at Power Bar and Goo, I knew that a few brands that I've gotten involved with Ironman, they attach their wagon to the Ironman engine. And due to the Ironman's worldwide
reach, absolutely,
we're able to get brands into distribution that wouldn't normally get into different countries because of what the events do. So you got to make investments, and that was my point with bringing my dad in. You got to invest some time and some money and get the right people too. I've been lucky to have people and brands seek me out and say, hey, can you do this? I'm like, yeah, right, we can do this.
Well, and think about it. When you first did Alcatraz, it was you were just as an athlete. Yep. Eventually you became the guy who did all the pre-race talks. You created all the videos on how to do this. It became you'd do the announcing leading into the event, jump off the boat, go do the race, and then do the announcing at the finish line, right? So your original investment is as an athlete, and then it becomes seeing a bigger picture.
Absolutely. In 1989, we got to give credit to Dave Horning, a Michigan swimmer who went to work for IBM, lived in Berkeley, started Envirosports, and he was the swim race director for Alcatraz. Sally Bailey, once again, another woman in the triathlon industry, keeping the men straight. You know, we see this with Diana Birch. We saw it with Sharon Ackles. We saw it with Valerie Silk, and we saw it with, of course, Judy Collins. And she's as fired up as ever. I saw her last night. So, you know, with Alcatraz, I saw Dave, and I was like, that guy's cool. You know, he raced here in Kona. You know, I had a lunch buffet out at Javi.
One of the greatest things ever. Yes. I think it was 82. He knew he was injured and couldn't run, so he catered a lunch
Yeah.
out on the road to Hawaii
Yeah.
and had a waiter out there with a table setting with
Tuxedo.
with the tablecloth. The guy was in a tuxedo, had the towel over his arm, had a champagne bucket in the champagne, and Dave stopped and had a drink and food there.
Yep.
Got disqualified,
Yep.
but got a ton of media.
Oh,
That
yeah.
guy knew how to take things and make them bigger, and he did that with Alcatraz.
You got the cover of Runner's World the next month.
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I saw Dave and I saw those people and I thought, and I went right up to Dave the next day and I said, hey, I want to help you next year. So I went in and I was the aid station captain in 1990.
For Alcatraz.
Yes, and I just kept coming back, and then he'd call me, and I'd trade an entry for my efforts, and the few days before the race. And then when Terry Davis was the race director with Trical, when they ran it, although IMG owned it after they bought it from Dave, and the race director said, hey, why are we putting Whit Raymond or Don Ryder out there on the boat and they have to hustle back to the finish line by the Marina Green and St. Francis Yacht Club? Why don't you announce? I'm like, yeah, sure. So it evolved where I was doing the videos for the race because having given so many hundreds of talks about Alcatraz, I said, hey, we got to use this thing called the internet. So we finally got videos together. That worked. Then I was on the boat. Yeah, I'd call the first 45 minutes on the boat, and then I would jump off another perfectly good boat into shark-infested waters, and I loved it. And I just kept going until I had heart surgery, and that sort of blew it. But I knew that going back to the original question about brands, if you do. And having done enough national and major international races,
Yes.
I know the brands that do get involved and they do 1,000-day effort and they pull out. Others are, loyal, like Adidas, who's done 25 plus years in Boston. They're not going anywhere. So these brands stick around, and we know Emilio De Soto. He's an old brand in triathlon, but he's not much into throwing down the money for the events. But his brand's still alive.
Yep.
But Sean O'Shea with Zoot. He was involved with them
Went
years
all in.
ago, and now he's back as an owner. I mean, at one time, Zoot was owned by Rubbermaid.
Right,
And,
it was.
So, Sean and his crew are there, and they're about 5 minutes from my house in Carlsbad, so I always, go over and see them. And
they're doing great stuff.
They are doing great stuff. And, I mean, you look at some of these shirts you see around town and what they're doing with their triathlon team. At one time in St. George, 70.3, I think we had 2,000 athletes, and 200 of them were Zoot.
10% of the field.
Amazing.
And that's 200 were Zoot, and then a lot of people who were wearing Zoot clothing
Yep.
weren't really part of Team Zoot, but they had bought the gear.
Yep.
So it's I always tell people that you can look at the numbers and go, oh, triathlon's like 1,500 people. But every triathlete, I had a formula at Competitor Magazine that one triathlete equaled 4 runners in
Yep.
terms of what they buy.
Yeah.
And actually, a buddy told me who was working his booth at Boston, said, Bob, that formula is now 1 to 8. That one triathlete will buy at an event what 8 runners will buy.
Yep.
So a 1,000 person triathlon is equal to an 8,000 person running event. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It shows you the power of this sport.
Yep.
Now, as somebody who's been here a lot of years with a number of different brands, what is it about this event that's so special?
It's the island. It is the lava, the terrain, where we're at. Nothing against any other part of the world. I
Nope.
mean, we live in San Diego. That's pretty good. But, I mean, it is just a beautiful piece of the world. It just occurred naturally as Commander Collins and Judy Collins put it together in Oahu, and Valerie Silk inherited it when they went back to the Pentagon, and then Valerie brought it over here and gave it to Sharon Ackles, and now it's under the direction for I think 25 years with Diana Birch, and it's just the way it's been handled with just kid gloves, and
Right.
I think if as a golfer, if you took the Masters out of Augusta, Georgia,
It's not the Masters.
It wouldn't be.
No.
Yeah. So, it's got to work hand in hand. It was good. We needed to get through all the glut of the lottery legacy people now.
From
and then there were
COVID,
qualifiers
the COVID
from
issues,
2019 and 2020, and then they had races and then they didn't, and there was this big glut of athletes. So we needed to get to have 2 races. But Nice is great, and it was the long course championship for ITU where the grip Mark Allen won 10 times, but it's not Kona. It is special, and it's the energy, it's the vibe, it's the ocean. The closer you get to the equator, the higher the salt content. You go up to Alaska, the salt content's not the same as here. Very buoyant water. It's very good water. Dolphins are there.
Right. It's
I
beautiful.
like it.
You're swimming in an aquarium.
Yes.
You're also one of those guys, and one of the things I've always respected, when you're up in the Bay Area, again, we're a small sport. We're not baseball, football, basketball. And the guys who are on radio and television, they don't know our sport.
Right.
But they know when somebody knows a sport and has a good personality, and if you go on KNBR, you go on with the different stations, one, you're able to represent the sport, and then they get it, they learn to love it, right? Because they know, hey, we can bring Eric on and talk about this Alcatraz race, talk about Ironman, talk about any of our stuff, and it creates media around a sport that doesn't necessarily get that, because they understand baseball, football, basketball. They don't know anything about triathlon. You do. So when they bring you on, they're confident enough to know Eric will carry all we got to do is get the hell out of the way. Eric, what's going on? Alcatraz is coming up, and it's going to be my 32nd in a row. Let me tell you what that is. You're jumping off a perfectly good boat in the shark-infested waters, and it's entertainment, but it also helps showcase the sport.
I usually don't have one-word answers, that's for sure.
Well, that's
and what's
the idea.
cool about that is Tom Tolbert, who played in the NBA for the Golden State Warriors, LA Clippers, Charlotte Hornets, I met him at a gym I was working at, and I was wearing Reebok shoes. I was giving people power bars at the gym. I was working at a gym, and I was working at a physical therapy clinic. So it's all about the hustle, and I put 4 side hustles together to make it work. And then different things worked out, but I stayed in touch with Tom, and I said, hey, I'm doing Boston if you want me to call in. Yes, for sure. And then they said, hey, you've got a good voice. And then I started doing, stuff for Special Olympics. And what was cool is I knew Maria Shriver as a kid on Cape Cod, and here her family mother started Special Olympics.
Yes.
She started Best Buddies, which gets people back into work, just like Challenged Athletes gets people back in the game of life. And then her dad, Sergeant Shriver, started the Peace Corps. So I grew up around people like that, and to be able to start my triathlon, give back through Special Olympics in the very beginning was great. And I do that through Harbor Bay Club in Alameda, where I met Tom. So I stayed in touch with Tom, and I stayed in touch with a guy named Steve Bitker on KCBS. And then I met Channel 2, Kevin O'Brien from KTVU, Channel 2 in the Bay Area. And I said, hey, Kevin, you've got Narcy David coming on once a week giving these huge calorie recipes. Let me be the counter to that before or after for action, where we can afford those calories. So we did calories in and calories out with Narcy David and me. That worked for a while. And that's where I was wearing Power Bar and Reebok on TV.
So you're wearing, what you're able to do, one, showcase the sport, showcase Lifetime Fitness, showcase your brands all at the same time. And you're giving them content. What the stations, what I found over the years, the stations need good stories and they need good content, especially the skeleton crews they have now. So when you can provide that and provide the assets, in our case, we'll provide the video, photos, etc., and everybody wins. That's what's cool.
They called me. I have a hard time talking about this one, but Boston Marathon, they called me and said, would you close with us? I was like, oh my gosh. Yeah, so Eric Burns, Tom Tolbert, and I closed that night from 6:30 to 7 on KNBR.
Talking about the Boston Marathon. Oh, you mean after,
on the 13th, 2013.
Right.
And that's when, of course, Roseanne Sedoyo was at the wrong place at the wrong time.
Lost her leg.
And she lost her leg. And then you introduced me to her in October that year. And I've stayed in touch with her and Mike. And Mike was the firefighter who rescued her. And now they're married. And we had breakfast in Falmouth on Cape Cod in August, just a few months ago. And that's because of you. And I've stayed in touch with her. And I've sponsored her and her crew. Her friend, Amy did the Boston Marathon, raising money for challenged athletes. And it's just amazing how the stories evolve, and the people. And I want to make sure we talk about you and challenged athletes as well.
We could talk about me some other time. This is about you. And this is one of the things is there's a lot of folks who can say, boy, somebody should do something. And most people don't. And you knew of and this is an event you just put on. And what I love about this is you did everything from designing the medals to putting on the event to doing the announcing. And, the parents, when they lose a child, it's horrific. And I think what you allowed them to do was have their child live on. Talk a little bit about, Talk a little about what you created there, because you created something brand new from nothing that will honor their daughter forever.
Yeah, thank you, man. Yeah, I grew up on Cape Cod, and I had a friend named Mary Beth Kelly, and we graduated in Barnstable High School in 1982. And before Instagram, there was no, like, what's going on? There was social. If you wanted to know what was going on at the hockey game or after the hockey game, the party after the hockey game, you'd ask Mary Beth. She knew. I mean, if you wanted to be set up with a girl, you know, you give an interest. Hey, Mary Beth, tell Stacy I like her. You know, she was social. She'd really help you out. Mary Beth Kelly was one of the it girls of the 1982 Barnstable High School. And so she met a guy, hockey player, Boston College, and they got married, had 3 kids, and they were all successful. But one of the daughters was a hockey player, played at Barnstable High, did quite well, went to New England College as a hockey player. Went down to Miami, and she played hockey there, and it was, I believe, a waitress. So she met a guy who wouldn't say no, and you know, they did as much as they could on getting restraining orders, etc. But unfortunately, he stalked her down and killed her. And so Megan Moore was murdered in that day. And when Mary Beth told me that story 2 summers ago on Cape Cod, it was 9:30 at night. It was almost like Scooby-Doo. The fog was rolling in, and I was right by all the boats and the moorings and the yachts and all the different bells that were going on and the different wires on the masts, etc. And she was telling me the story, and it was such detail, and it just hit me. You know, because I've been involved with Pat's Run and Pat Tillman and Eric Burns, of course, what they do in Tempe and San Jose, it just hit me, and I just said, Mary Beth, I wasn't going to ask her the next day. It just came out, you know. I'm not afraid to ask the question. And I said, Mary Beth, do you want me to put on Megan's Run? And she said, I'd love that. And from then on, it was on. And then all of a sudden, my mind gets going. A medal, a puck, a hockey puck.
She was a hockey player.
Purple was her favorite color. Purple's also the color associated with anti-domestic violence. Richard Vernay from Pressio T-shirts, the man, the myth, the legend. The only guy I know that qualified for Kona and passed on it. He's like, no.
And he qualified for the Boston Marathon at Catalina with 4,000 feet of climbing.
Yes. And his wife Barbie used to work for you at Challenge Athletes. So Pressio made these T-shirts that look like hockey shirts.
Right.
So they only got 3 things. They got a really good T-shirt. It's the keeper. It's the golden boy. The puck medal. Now I had 4 of my friends who were doctors be mobile medics, so they were on bikes during the 5K. And so one of them, doctors, she's a hockey mom, and she said, hey, where are these pucks? Dan Ashworth made him from Ashworth Awards. You know that guy? He's made your medals for the
Thank thing that racing.
The sex. Yeah. So Dan made these puck medals. Now he's getting orders from hockey moms to give kids this puck medal at the end of the hockey season.
Again, everybody wins. That's
unbelievable.
The theme. So now, again, Megan's family, she obviously, you can never get over the horrors of what they went through.
Yep.
But the fact that they can celebrate her every single year.
Oh, yeah, reset. The son, Will, was out there. Number 16 is the sister ran, Mary Beth, Billy. That was it. The last thing that they really did as a group was mourn, and it was darkness. And so people came up to me and said, you really helped them out.
Right.
You know, I'm like, wow. And so the thing is, it's really weird. I really didn't even feel like I was doing anything. It was like I was being guided. I don't want to put a belly or a beard or a cross or a star to any of it. But all I know is something stirred me to do it because it's the right thing to do. And I can do it pretty easily.
Because you've got all those relationships. You can call Dan up and get the medal set. You can, you know who to call to get the roads blocked. You know what.
Dave McGilvery was my race director.
Exactly. So it worked out.
That guy from Boston.
Yeah. Eric, you've done some great stuff.
Thank you.
You've touched a lot of lives.
I just want to mention one thing. A friend of mine who I've known for 30 years, a math professor up in the Bay Area, Professor Carrie Freites, she told me, as I've put out there to different people, hey, I'm doing Alcatraz tomorrow. I'm announcing it. If you know anybody, let me know. So she sent me back an email. Yeah, a friend of mine's doing it. She's half my age, but she reminds me of me when I was a kid. And so I kept an eye on her, Alex Saboroff. And so I looked at the results when Julie Moss was doing the awards with me. And I looked at the 18 to 24. There it is, Alex Saboroff. She won her age group.
Wow.
She's only been in the sport a year. She went to TCU University, almost got into LPGA. She was captain of the golf team.
Wow.
Yeah, and then she went to Haas Business School in Berkeley, and where did she meet the triathlon group? Dean Harper.
Cal Berkeley.
So Dean Harper, with Cal Berkeley, she gets involved with them, I gave her some shoes over time, sponsored her. with some coaching. Mark Allen's her coach. She went to Texas, and she's qualified. She got 4th in her age group. I called Mark and said, hey, give my credit card for a year. I want to pay for this
coaching,
kid.
yeah.
And he called me back an hour later. He says, oh, TriNet doesn't take third-party credit cards. I said, look, I got a buddy that'll hack the machine, and within a week or a day, it'll be a server issue. Anyways, within an hour, TriDot said, hey, we can take third-party credit cards now. My point in saying this is, here, this kid Alex is racing here on Saturday. She's been through some ups and downs in life, and when we have the opportunity to make a difference and help people, if you got a, $100,000 car, you got a Rolex watch, maybe think about paying for coaching for a person,
Yeah.
There's nothing the matter with that. You can't take it with you.
No.
You got to give it to receive it back.
And
it's unconditional.
I'm guessing after dealing with what you dealt with, having open heart surgery,
Yeah.
you're not that your attitude's always been the same, but probably even more so now.
Yeah.
Yeah, love it.
Yeah, I mean, I had open heart surgery 2 years ago. I almost died. And if it wasn't for Jeffrey Essikow, who started Challenge Athletes with you, he got me in front of the right doctor.
The right doctor who saved your life.
And I was in there, Scripps La Jolla, for 18 days. And the surgeon, when I talked to him, and he's the same surgeon that's done a few other triathletes in the same condition, I said to him, when in the last few years, because in the last 2 years I've stayed in touch with him, I said, in the last 2 years, have you had a harder surgery than me?
No.
And he said, no. And then I said, before that, how many harder surgeries did you have than me? He said, only 1 or 2. So
he told us that you were, of all the guys that he dealt with recently, that he was very happy that it turned out the way it did.
Yeah, I'm glad to be
I'm
here.
glad you're still here,
I am
buddy.
too, man. I got some work to do at the Hot Corner tomorrow. Yeah.
Eric Gilsenan, everybody. Poncho Man.
Yeah, I love
Take
you,
us out.
Pancho Man. Thank you.
Bike and run in the corner sun. We're gonna swim, bike and run in the corner sun, cause it's breakfast with Bob.
Love you, Bob.
Poncho Man.
Yeah.
Yeah.